It's the only reason the rolls get as dirty as they have been, because the states face no downside other than from Judicial Watch. I mean, we've cleaned up 5 million names from the rolls, a nonprofit. Imagine what we can do if the Justice Department gets its act together. The United States Justice Department filed a statement of interest in Judicial Watch's lawsuit in Oregon to clean up the voter rolls there. Now, as you may know, or maybe you don't, so I'll tell you, there's a federal law called the National Voter Registration Act. It requires states to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls, to make the rolls available to individuals, to make sure that, and groups like Judicial Watch, so that they can ascertain whether the rolls are being maintained as the law requires. And Judicial Watch has used the law in a historic fashion to ensure voter rolls in the United States are cleaned the way they're supposed to pursuant to law. And that's resulted just in the last few years of 5 million names being cleaned from the rolls thanks to Judicial Watch's legal efforts, lawsuits, 1.2 million names cleaned in Los Angeles County. Almost it's almost 1 million now cleaned in New York City. Well over 100,000 cleaned down here in Washington, D.C. Rolls clean in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Kentucky, Colorado. Now, of course, we don't just sit on our laurels here, because there are probably, based on the more recent set of numbers, and it's going back a few years, so I could be off by a few million here and there, either low or too low or too high, right? The plus or minus. But it's at least 20 million names that need to be cleaned from the rolls nationally. We've cleaned 5 million of them. I say 20 million because it used to be 24 million, so I'm just taking away the numbers we cleaned. And to clean up more names, we've sued in Illinois, we've sued in California, because even though LA cleaned up the rolls, California generally hasn't in other jurisdictions in California, local jurisdictions, and Oregon. And in Oregon, we've got a big case or a big hearing next week in court. And just last week, the Trump Justice Department, I should be fair, the Trump Justice Department filed, as I said, a statement of interest. And it was narrowly tailored in the sense that they were just advocating for the proper application of the law, that this material be made available, voter registration lists be made available to Judicial Watch and other parties who are trying to ensure the rolls are being cleaned. But it's for the first time that the Justice Department in recent memory has done anything to ensure that the law is enforced when it comes to voter list maintenance. And Judicial Watch is happy that they've come in to support our cause here, however limited it might be, because we've been doing the heavy lifting alone. We haven't had the Justice Department helping us. During the Trump administration, there was one case where they jumped in Kentucky on our side, and that was really it. And Harmeet Dillon is the head of the Civil Rights Division, great activist lawyer for the conservative values that you and I share. And she's great on these civil rights issues. The left likes to pretend they're civil rights supporters. They're not. They don't like civil rights. They don't like your right to vote because they want to steal it all the time. And so civil rights and voting rights properly understood means that you would support Judicial Watch, because we're trying to preserve the vote, not steal votes. An election that's honestly run is the best way to vindicate voting rights. And having dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections. And Harmeet Dillon was picked by President Trump to run this, the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department that handles cases like this. Oregon, by the way, has some of the dirtiest voting rolls in the nation, and that's saying a lot. I think we described it in our lawsuit here. Let me get to that page. Oregon's voting rolls contain large numbers of old and active registrations, and 29 of Oregon's 36 counties removed few or no registrations as required by federal election law. And our lawsuit asserts that Oregon and 35 of its counties have overall registration rates exceeding 100%, and Oregon has the highest known inactive registration rates of any state in the nation. So let me break that down for you. If a county or locality or a state, usually it's by county in the states, have a voter registration rate of 100%, arguably even close to 100% or higher, that's a pretty good indication they're not cleaning up their rolls, because what it means is they have more people living there. No, excuse me. What it means is they have more people on the rolls than are living there. So if your registration rate is 105%, right, and you've got 100 people in your county, that means you've got 105 people on your rolls. That means there are 5 people who shouldn't be there and should be removed. And it doesn't mean you're going to catch them all as soon as they move away. No, but you've got to have a program in place to keep the rolls clean as time moves on. And what is the process? It's really simple. I think it should be more aggressive, but this is what the law requires and, allows the states to do in order to comply with the federal cleanup statute, which is that if I don't, let's say Tom Fitton, let's use me as an example. I live here in Washington, D.C. If I don't vote in the next federal election, which is going to be next year, D.C. is supposed to send me a card. Hey, Tom, and I'm paraphrasing, we didn't see you voted this time. Are you there? If you are, let us know. Send this card back. So if I send the card back, they don't do anything. But if I don't send the card back, or if I don't vote for the next 2 federal elections, so not only in 2026, but then 2028 and 2030, then they can start removing my name. They can remove my name from the rolls. So what you're talking about is really kind of like 5-6 years potentially before your name is cleaned up. Now, is that perfect? No. But if you begin the process, the rolls get a lot more clean in a way that's appropriate. And the left doesn't want any of that done. And that's what Judicial Watch has been doing. So we had a settlement with Los Angeles. They began that process, and it resulted in 1.2 million names being cleaned up. Now, of course, when we go to sue, sometimes they clean up the rolls immediately because they've begun the process and they don't actually remove the names even though they can. And that's why when they say inactive voters are people who haven't voted and most of whom should have been removed under the process that I talked to you about. And they have the highest known inactive registration rate in the country there in Oregon. So we got a court hearing because the other side's trying to get our case thrown out. And by the way, the left intervenes in our cases all the time. I'm not sure who intervened in Oregon or if anyone did specifically, but it doesn't matter. All the time we're fighting the leftist Borg, as I call it, in these voting cases. And as I said, we're usually alone. At least here, the Justice Department sent a statement of interest. It's kind of like an amicus brief, defending in part our claims. In a Justice Department press release, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dillon, said, "Accurate voter registration rolls are critical to ensure that elections in Oregon are conducted fairly, accurately, and without fraud. States have specific obligations under the list maintenance provisions of the National Voter Registration Act, and the Department of Justice will vigorously enforce these requirements." Yes. I mean, we're happy to do the work. I mean, that's what we do, right? But it's outrageous we've been doing it alone, and the Justice Department has largely, even under Republican administrations, refused to enforce this law. It's the only reason the rolls get as dirty as they have been, because the states face no downside other than from Judicial Watch. I mean, we've cleaned up 5 million names from the rolls, a nonprofit. Imagine what we can do if the Justice Department gets its act together. And it looks like at least Ms. Dillon, Harmeet, is ready to begin doing the work. So I'm not going to complain. They could be doing more, the usual stuff. I'm happy they intervened as far as they did with this statement of interest. As they said, this case presents important questions regarding enforcement of the National Voter Registration Act. Congress has vested the Attorney General with authority to enforce the NVRA on behalf of the United States. And they take the same position as Judicial Watch does when it argues that by its plain terms, the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act, identifies one entity, the state, that is required to carry out obligations for voter registration administration. And the Justice Department focuses on the state's obligation to make voter registration lists available to Judicial Watch and the public, as federal law requires. Now, we can't really enforce the law until we get access to the list. And what happens is sometimes you go into these states, like Oregon, and they say, oh, we don't have those lists. You have to go to each county and figure out how to get the list from them directly. No. Federal law doesn't say counties have the obligation to make this stuff available. I mean, I think they do. But ultimately, who's responsible? They say the states have the obligation to clean up the rolls, to make the rolls available to people like Judicial Watch. So it's a big hearing next week. What day of the week is it on? Or what date, I should say. June 18th. What day is June 18th? Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. And so let's hope the hearing goes well. I don't know what we're going to hear. I think the other side is trying to get our motion dismissed or our lawsuit dismissed. It's the courts these days don't rule from the bench that much, but so I don't know if we'll know what happens even next week, but at least we'll have the argument. And thankfully, we've got the Trump administration on our side in at least one key respect. So, good news. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.